I'm all about focusing right now. So
Focus is
you're on key.
good. Focus is good, and we are recording, so we will focus on My Name is Holocaust here on the Milestone Book Club on 22 panels. I'm joined by the brothers Anderson, no relation, and I think the consensus among us right now is it's hot, which if I'm understanding um if I'm understanding the beginning of many of these episodes or issues that say this takes place before the long hot summer. The hot is actually more appropriate for our next 2 months, but we'll start with Holocaust, who's pretty hot himself. Anyway, so I guess we've
This
got
is
3 hot months of
yeah. This is a story about
Milestone
a
Book
burning
Club.
man, as we're told at the
Yeah,
very beginning and the very end.
but
Right.
not Burning Man.
Not Burning Man, the festival, the event. No.
Right.
Um,
Also, Black Facts, Long Hot Summer has historical precedent. Um, just as an idea, and definitely dates back to some of the uprisings that have happened from continuous injustices. But also, um, famously, Chuck D of Public Enemy, uh, you know, said those words too. So yeah, so this is it's no coincidence that that's the title of the upcoming event.
I had no idea. I did not. Damn. Okay. Yeah, I'm looking it up right now and realizing, oh, hell, yes. Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Good Lord. Yeah, 67, of course. There was all sorts of,
Yeah,
Jesus. Yeah. That's fascinating. I mean, yeah. Wow. Okay. I mean, interesting. Yeah. 65. Yeah.
yeah,
Watts was 65. Okay. Interesting.
right.
Damn. Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, having already, I mean, again, I think all of us have read ahead to some degree, well, we've already all read it, or well, at least Marcus and I have, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, the
Yeah,
Long
no,
Hot
this
Summer.
is as far as I've gotten. I haven't done the
Okay,
long
yeah.
hot summer.
But yeah, the Long
Yeah.
Hot Summer is a major, it's kind of the closing of the Milestone universe. I mean, I mean, obviously not exactly because there's been publications since, and it's not like it was intended to be the grand finale,
Right.
but it kind of ended up being that for better or for worse. So it's it was sort of their first. Actually, yeah, was it their first like actual event? Because Worlds Collide was with DC.
Was DC?
Oh well, the Shadow War.
Yeah, Shadow War.
Yeah,
Shadow.
Shadow War is the first real one, and then they did this. And this one is yeah, Long Hot Summer will. I mean, we'll get there when we get there, but yeah, it kind of ends up being, unfortunately, for better or for worse, I guess, the grand finale of the whole Milestone universe. Which,
Hmm.
yeah, I mean, there's positives. I
Though,
mean,
though,
yeah.
like as we say that, I feel like I need to bring up something that I meant to bring up before we dove in,
Oh yeah,
which is Static
the
has
ongoing.
has an ongoing series coming up from Cody Ziglar. Um,
Yeah.
Yeah.
so so
Yeah.
that was cool news out
Well, and
of
also, I mean, always
um
yes, and shout out to Cody Ziegler. Definitely, I always want to give props to the great Stephanie Williams too for her upcoming
yeah,
Vic
who's
series.
yep, Vic.
Yeah.
I was gonna get there,
Okay, no, I mean, still your thunder,
but
but like, yeah.
no, 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 no. I share thunder. I like sharing thunder. I'm not Thor. I don't get possessive of my thunder. I'm okay if Jane takes the hammer.
Sometimes I wonder why I even share the thunder. Sorry, I had to. All right, never mind. I
No, it's
wanted to
all
love
good.
it. Anyway,
But yeah, no. And was there a third? There was
Yes, Morgan Hampton is going to be doing a Steel comic.
okay. There we go. So three. We went from none to three. Hopefully this will not be a short.
Yeah, you got to wait and see. I don't want to be
Yeah.
negative. I think that the people made their voices heard,
yeah.
and DC heard. It now, I'm old enough to remember 2020 when
Yeah.
Oof.
a lot of promises were made, what
Yes.
I mean? And a lot of people realized that, hey, maybe Black people's lives do matter. And then a lot of organizations were really dealing with it locally who seem to be all about it, mysteriously not only walked back their commitments, but in some cases just retreated into white supremacy. You know what I mean? So that being said, I'm not trying
Hmm.
to be negative. I hope that DC is like, wow, we need to have a sustained, you know, commitment to diversifying our voices in multiple directions. I hope so.
Hmm.
That's my positive take on this. I hope DC is committing to take this beyond the news cycle.
Yeah.
That that would be fantastic. I did just jump up to the DC So White uh website, and right now they're not saying anything. So I think they're taking the wait and see as well. Uh
Got to.
yeah,
Yeah.
no, I
I
don't
mean, I
disagree.
mean,
I
Give it
don't
time.
disagree.
I feel like
San
we
Diego
got to.
just happened. We got
Yeah.
to let it breathe for a sec. Did either of you
Well,
go to?
and
Also, I feel like, you know, it's like it's not a big Stephanie Williams has just been like crushing it like kind of across the board. So, I think that it's a no-brainer, to give her a Vixen
Mhm.
series. And I know this is something that she's wanted to do for a long time. You know what I mean? So I don't even know if I give DC as much credit. I have to wait to see if they go beyond somebody that's just knocking it out of the park consistently, and we see other books and see them taking chances on things they haven't
right.
previously.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, this is a start. Let's see what happens. We'll evaluate and see where we go from here and how things shake out. But yeah, it's a promising start. So I
Yeah,
am,
yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I'm reserving judgment too, but I was excited to be like,
It's
oh, hell yes, static, finally.
yeah, it's
Have
it's
they said,
something.
yeah, have they
Mhm.
said like how much I mean, I'm assuming it's in the DC universe, but like,
Yeah, I don't trust them. I don't. Oh, how much? Oh, I thought you meant like how many
oh,
issues.
oh no, no, no. I just meant like I was curious if they'd said like, is this going to be
Well,
about him, joining the Titans or whatever?
yeah,
I don't
there's a
know.
few. That's a good point because I feel like because of that is, to my understanding, is not the static of the Milestone's Return universe,
Yeah,
and I don't necessarily think that he's the static of the OG '90s Milestone universe either because I don't know, like Dwayne McDuffie kind of put a bow on that universe,
yes.
and we saw Static grown up.
Yeah,
Um,
and married and with kids and like
yeah,
I mean I personally, this is a little bit more of a personal opinion than anything else, but I'm not a fan of like having to do a lot of shuffling of like, oh, is he, the static from our universe who got brought, or from this
right.
universe who got brought forward 20 years, or I don't know. Like I don't, just
No, you're
make
right.
him, yeah,
Yeah.
make him regular like standard static and just in the DC universe,
Well, yeah, because we know across media, right? Whether you're talking about film, novels, comics, definitely, like time travel alone can get messy, but
Yeah.
multiple reality plot lines can really get messy. And
Yeah.
look, I for one, I was reserving judgment for my Doomsday excitement. I did get excited, watching the trailer, but that being said, I also think about all the people I know who aren't as caught up
Oh,
on the
yeah.
developments of the MCU. And like there is so much lore just in that trailer alone. You know what I mean? Like there's so much
Yeah.
you well, this is the Professor X and Magneto of the Fox universe, which blah blah blah, and not to be confused with the Professor X of that had his neck snapped. Even though he still looks like Patrick Stewart. But my point
Right.
is that this stuff it can be a bit much if you if you get too
It's
deep into
intimidating.
the
Yeah.
verse.
I haven't been up on the Milestone. I haven't been up on the Marvel the MCU since, geez, I'm trying to remember the last movie I saw. I think it was, God, I haven't even watched since like I haven't even seen Guardians 3. Like I'm way behind on everything. But
Mm.
also like there's a lot to catch up on and I'm gonna do it eventually. But I just
Yeah, I mean it'll
there's
be
so
there.
much.
It's
It'll be
fine.
there. It'll be there. There's TV shows, there's everything, I'll have I do I'm the kind of guy who I go to the wiki page that lists it all in chronological like release order. So I know
Yeah.
that like, oh, this thing comes before I'm sorry, we're getting way off subject. My point
Yeah,
is
yeah,
though, I
yeah.
am
We
gonna
don't
get caught
really.
up
I
on
do
it at
want to
some
talk about this
no,
book.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I have thoughts on it, but
Yeah. I mean,
Well,
sorry,
then
I'll go
back to
first.
Holocaust.
What's that?
yes.
Then back to Holocaust.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah. So this was
So,
I looked this up by the way. It was 95. So this was just after this started around or just after the Death Wish miniseries. I don't remember exactly where it fits in the timeline of Shadow Cabinet and everything else, but it's sort of following on from there was an issue
Well,
of
I
Shadow.
mean, the next issue that we will read is Shadow Cabinet number 14.
Gotcha. And there was an issue in there I think we read that was like just sort of checking in on Holocaust and the fact that he's
Right.
hanging out with Bad Betty and Tarmac and they're just kind of doing stuff, I guess. And so not much has changed since then, I guess, for this particular status quo.
yeah,
Yeah.
so I would say, do we want to get into like just overall thoughts before we get into the recapping?
Yeah, I
I,
would. I mean, do you have some, do you want to kick it off?
yeah, so for me, I thought this was fascinating. I really enjoyed it. I going in, I was like, because obviously Holocaust is much like his name is really a character that's very easy to hate. It's like, you know what I mean? He's
Yeah.
literally designed to be like the
The most dislikable guy.
kind of, yeah, it's the antagonist that you hate. But that so I was it's an intriguing like proposition to even, give him a book. And we've talked about like with Death Wish, as a character where it's kind of like this guy's out of his mind and like he I guess is right sometimes in a broken clock twice a day style, but like it's like I thought they did interesting I want to say the right name. Blaustein,
Maddie Blaustein.
Maddie Blaustein is
That's not how she was credited at the time, but yeah, yeah.
right. Okay, yeah. It did a great job with taking, a villain, but also, finding a balance through just through overall storytelling and and I think did a good job. And I say this book ended up being the same thing for me. I mean, I'm a big fan of Ivan Velez's writing. Um, but I thought it was interesting because it's like I really can't stand Holocaust, and then it's kind of like, but similar. This is nothing like the Death Wish book necessarily, but like similarly to how like I know I think we talked about the Death Wish, how in order to get around the problem of centering a story from a really messed up character's perspective, they built an interesting, cast around there and, interesting
Yeah.
dynamics and elements. And so, yeah, I overall just my big thoughts before we really get into the details. I did enjoy this. It gave us definitely background on how Holocaust got to be who he is and as unlikable as he is in a way that is understandable from like real life dynamics that happen to people, you know what I mean? And so in that sense, like, but they he was careful not to be like, oh,
This
boo-hoo.
excuses everything.
Yeah, this excuses it and now you're supposed to like him. It's kind of like a reason but not an excuse.
Yeah.
So anyway, I mean, my overall thoughts are I did enjoy it. Like I definitely want to get into more detail, but overall I did like it.
I I honestly I really hate to be the negative guy then because this was just kind of a big wad of nothing for me. Like
Hmm.
again, I've blessed, I like Tommy Lee Edwards. It's just that this like barely anything happens and what we get about Holocaust as like a character was felt really thin. Like we'll get into the specifics of it, but it's like, oh, he was abused as a kid. Oh, he had a terrible upbringing. Oh, he wants to be a big man in the coalition, which I did like that element of. But like, there just was kind of nothing besides that. Like, he ends up more or less accomplishing all his goals in a way that isn't. It didn't particularly move me or make me interested in him or really care about it. Not even in the sense of hating him. It's just like I didn't really care because like everything kind of just happened in a way that felt very like uninteresting is the only word I can give to it, and I feel really bad about saying that after you kind of talking about it, but
No, I saw. I
it
mean,
just I mean going back to what you said actually about Maddie Ballstein's the Death Wish miniseries. Like the thing with the Death Wish miniseries is that what I really liked about that series and what I think was crucial. I mean, you said it, the supporting cast, because as much as Death Wish's name is on the front, like it's the story of I am blanking on her name, but the character is
Betty,
the
Thomasina.
no no
Um,
no the cop in Death Wish. Um
and Deathwish.
yeah, in Death Wish, yes.
Also Maddie, right? Or
It,
was it?
is it Maddie? God, am I?
I feel like that cop shared a name with Maddie
Yeah.
Blaustein. I could be wrong, but let's just say
I'll look
Maddie
it
for
up.
lack of you know.
Yeah, but like it's her story more than anything else,
Mhm.
and Death Wish is kind of there for the ride, but it's not his. He's
Well, he's like a demon, an entity that haunts the book almost, and even haunts our protagonist. You
yeah,
know,
but
and
it is her story
yeah,
instead.
yeah, yeah. No, that's definitely. I'm agreeing. I'm just saying, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Marisa,
Marissa, that's
yeah,
good.
but like her but the fact that she's more or less the main character as much as Death Wish, like the weird, the not the weird, like the demon character who's haunting her, like there wasn't an equivalent to that for this. Like I felt like it should have been Bad Betty's book in that sense, if that was going to be the case, or
Can I,
Thomasina's, but neither of them had enough sort of screen time or I felt like impact on the plots. Like Thomasina has the mayor has a big sort of revelatory moment and a
I
connection to
have
the
to tell
story.
you, yeah, I mean, well, I don't know, I got to tell you, I respectfully disagree on that because I feel like one of
Sure.
the things I was interested in, because we've seen Thomasina throughout the Milestone books that we've read,
Yes.
but just very briefly and almost like just functionally as like a part of how the city works, right? And like, um, and if I'm not, and what's crazy is I know in one of the many books that we've read in the Milestone universe, they actually did. I feel like this wasn't the first revelation of her being his mom, right? Didn't I?
This book was the first one where it was revealed that she's Holocaust's mother.
Well, wait, there was. What am I
There,
thinking of? I
there's a
know
there's a
I
bit
read.
in Icon where she reveals that she was like that that she fully knew about the quantum the Big Bang juice stuff.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
that's the
I knew
thing
there
that
was a big revelation, but maybe that's what I was thinking of.
yeah, this is like it was one of the issues I had as a kid. So like I remember
So,
that moment very well where like he
yeah,
comes in as Augustus Freeman, hands over the documents and is like, "Hey, they're going to get you for this." And she's like, "Man, you don't know what you're getting into.
right.
This is way too big." And then he puts on the mask and she's like, "Oh my God, you're Icon."
And that was
Um
kind of pivotal, right? That was a pivotal
yeah.
moment in showing that, like, she's willing to, bend rules and everything. I look,
Right.
so I mean, I guess where I was going with this is, all right. So first of all, and maybe it's because I've been reading a lot of, Criminal of Ed Brubaker. Not comparing this book to Criminal, but to me, this is
There's
like a
yeah.
straight up crime comic, and it's doing. I think it's primarily concerned with that. And like, yes, the main, criminal on the come up in this book, it happens to be a man who is living fire. You know what I mean? But like,
Yeah.
I I guess what I was looking for out of this was something different. And it's like, and sure, it's like it doesn't. But I even said in saying like what I did enjoy about like the bit of backstory we get about him doesn't like excuse it or even make you feel warm towards him, but it helps you understand.
Yeah.
I also I forget. Wait, I think there was something you said that was just, well, it doesn't matter. I mean, like, yeah,
Yeah.
I guess we look at it differently, but
Yeah,
I-
it's having different expectations. I mean, the thing is the most recent, like I did actually end up rewatching a chunk of the Penguin miniseries, the HBO
yeah,
series, is Colin Farrell's, um, and I liked it. It's not amazingly fantastic, but it's a fun story, and I think it's well handled, and everyone in it is pretty good. And the thing about a lot of like crime stories like that the stories where it's the protagonist is very much an open criminal. He commits awful acts. He does this. He does that. Um, it's not like it has to have a moral at the end, but I do want there to be a sense of like, yeah, he's having to do things even he doesn't want to do in order to achieve these goals. I mean, I'm not going to spoil anything for Penguin, but like you can kind of guess it fits a lot of standard crime tropes where he has to murder this person that he doesn't want to, he has to betray this person he doesn't want to, and Holocaust just like has none of that. Like he kind of just gets everything he wants, and literally the only thing he gives up in the end is his name,
But
which
that's actually
like that doesn't
more
mean anything
sig
for me.
but that's more significant than that actually is a really significant thing.
Is
Like I
it
thought that was
though?
an interesting writing choice.
I like it doesn't like no one ever sort of calls him out on having on the name Holocaust, and it's not like it's a personal. It's not like it meant something deep to him as a child. It just sort of is like, yeah, Holocaust. It's literally the
No, but
worst
I mean
possible
his
name.
name. I mean his name in the sense of like
Oh, like
street
his
and
family.
and making the name, literally making a name for himself, and the idea of your name ringing out, like in that
That's
sense.
that's fair,
So,
but then
but
he
that's
doesn't actually
actually
give.
what that's. They're not even like it's interesting because you could see where, like, I'd say from a probably company and writing perspective,
Yes,
that
that's
they're doing two things.
right.
They're
Yeah,
like, yeah, they're like, yo, this name is kind of messed up.
maybe let's not call him Holocaust anymore. Can we come up with a
Yeah,
good reason
and
to not do that?
but at the same time, like in world, so that's the outer world reason, but in
Right.
world, like it's very much in the text of them posing that as a choice to him, that uh and it's interesting because they do it, they give him like a dual suggestions of the sacrifice he can make at the end. And one is to give up Juniper, which that would have been the obvious, like he's a bad guy, he doesn't care about people, he doesn't care about women. So the obvious choice would have been the easy choice, as from a writing perspective, would be like, oh, I don't care about her, you can have her. You know what I mean? But like
Yeah.
it's like him giving up the name is a bigger thing. And so like to me, this is the classic case. It's not the exact same as the Penguin show, but in the Penguin show, like he
Yeah.
won, right? He won and he got what
He wanted to
he
get what he
basically.
wants, but this
But how
person
does he go
said
out? How does he go out at the end of the show? Having a mother boy dance with
his comatose mother in the room and like his best friend dead. And yeah, I mean,
yeah,
but that's
yeah,
the
you know
thing.
what I'm
Like
saying? So
Holocaust didn't lose anything. Like
I
that's my
I
problem.
I actually I differ. I think that he's the thing he lost is that he's as miserable, if not more, at the end than he had been. So it's the idea that like you could be the big dog, you could um get onto the coalition, but like you are who you were when you got there. So I mean, to me,
Yeah,
that's what it is. It's like, and at the end, he does know that the mayor is his mom.
he
So
does, but that also doesn't change very much. Like that's the thing is I don't feel as though like he still is just a dude who has bad dreams about his crappy childhood and like it doesn't the Holocaust at the end is for me not really fundamentally any different than the Holocaust at the end. Did I say the end or the beginning? You know what I mean? Like I don't feel like there's a whole lot of change to him in a way that would make it interesting. Like even his relationship with Juniper, like there's a couple of different routes I could see them taking. It's like, oh, maybe he ends up actually sort of forming a real relationship with Juniper. Maybe he realizes that she does have something in common with him, and he doesn't want to kill her for that reason. Maybe he
let me
ends
ask
up
you this: if he, I don't think it would have been with the character that they've established. I believe in humanity's ability to do better in most cases.
yeah.
The character that they've established, I, as I'm reading this, I was like, yeah, I don't. I not only did I not think that there would be any plausible ending where he comes out a better person, but I also realized as I read it, I didn't want that because I don't think that would ring true.
No, and
I think it would-
I don't even
yeah,
think that's the best outcome. It's just it's also like I wish it feels like there should be something more,
be
I
some
guess
type
is
of
the thing.
price that he
It's some
paid.
kind of real price that actually like yeah, something that really genuinely caused him to regret like there's nothing like by the end of this, he's lost almost nothing. Like from what I've read, from what I see, I don't see him losing much of anything except, oh, he has to be called a different name now. Which, so like,
Okay,
I don't get
but
why that's a. It doesn't feel as though there's much of an actual loss to any of this in a way that
let me
feels.
ask you this. Outside of maybe money and power, what did he have to lose?
Uh, I mean, not respect, but fear. Like that's, the whole thing of it is that he's a guy who just wants people to fear him, and he doesn't, and also like self. I mean, he has these nightmares. He has this deeper trauma, but that doesn't really get addressed. No one, helps him through it. He doesn't understand anything more about himself. He meets his real mother, his biological mother, but that
And
doesn't
she has zero fear of him.
she has
Like,
zero fear of him, but
Yeah,
also they don't have much of an actual relationship. Like
uh,
it's just
I'm I'm gonna jump in here.
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
Uh,
yeah, yeah, please.
because um I mostly agree with Marcus, but I'm gonna take a slightly different bent. Um and this is where Ted, maybe that this stuff didn't pan out, and that would obviously change. I don't look at this series as if it's supposed to be self-contained. This feels like a
The Steven
preamble,
universe.
and
Yeah.
it feels like a preamble to a new level or a new whatnot. Um, Holocaust up until this point is made out to be exclusively bad, and I feel like all through this we see nicks in that armor.
Oh, really?
I do. I
I,
do. I mean, he keeps telling um
Juniper?
Juniper to leave, but he doesn't make her. He doesn't actually hurt her. There are flashbacks to what seems like a very tender time between them.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't just a, oh, I banged your daughter, the way he made it out in that opening scene. Like they
Mhm.
had a relationship. Um, I think in giving up his name, he is giving up that fear. I mean, I think that's why, like when you've built up a name
Yeah.
to be feared, to give it up is to like you have to start over in terms of having like people aren't gonna like
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of like when Prince became the artist formerly known as, like there was a period where he was more of a joke than a genius, at least
I
to the
guess it depends
people.
on which community you're from. But
But no,
like,
no, no, no. But I mean to the people who weren't all. I mean, like Holocaust is going to continue having respect and maybe even have greater respect among the people who are his backers, so to speak.
right.
But
No, yeah,
but higher doesn't mean anything
right. Well,
to you.
and
You
his
know, I mean, how many people know that Yusuf Islam is out there performing Cat Stevens music? A name can be, and I wish I could come up with an example where it was more crime or power rather than music, but I don't know enough. The two athletes that came to mind, well, nobody's really afraid of Lou Alcindor or Cassius Clay. They made their names after they changed their names.
I mean,
well,
these are all examples that are kind of interesting, but at the same time, I don't feel like we see. I don't know. I mean,
We certainly haven't yet. He gave up the name in the final.
pages of the book, and it's
so
like, but
Right.
it's also like we don't get in this book very much indication that the name is what people are afraid of.
no, all right. So no,
Yeah.
this is what I'm saying. This is
But
what I'm
name
saying.
and reputation play together.
Yeah. Also, for what it's worth, we are amongst ourselves are comic creators and podcasters and fans of comics.
Yeah.
This uh we're not like hardcore criminals. We're not people whose whose cultural cachet is built off of fear and rep and everything in that sense, right? So even in the examples we're giving, even all those examples, they don't quite equate to the situation for
No,
Holocaust. And then on top of that, if you really look at this final page where they're talking, he busts into the mayor's, office,
Hmm.
and he specifically tells her that she owes him a name. Now you think about, like, to me, like
right.
there's a lot to that in the sense that, like, all right, like he's a person where like abandonment
Yeah,
and
you abandoned me rather than naming me. I
yeah,
had to
and
give
being
up a
told
name to
he was
play
in his
by
shit.
your rules.
So the
Yeah.
idea, like, he's his hands are on fire.
Right,
He's in an aggressive stance, but he's if you that's to me like somewhat submissive to her in the sense
Yeah.
that, while he's saying it in a demanding way, he's basically coming to her and requesting his new name, like, which he wasn't given, when he was
right,
born, at least not from her.
right.
And so to me, it's like this is what he's lost. Like, losing his name is, yes, there's a price in the streets that he paid for losing his name, but in addition to that, he's also it could be seen as he's crawling back to the mother that didn't want him, um, for a name as well.
Well, I mean, that's all this, yeah, this all kind of squares as like stuff they could have done, but I just don't feel like we see any of that. Like, yeah, there's a potential sort
And
of, it's just
I'm
that the whole
I'm
thing
a
is one page. Like, it's more just like, I feel like genuinely, I feel like this is sort of a just
well,
it's about the execution for me because like do a thing have Thomasina reveal that at the beginning of the miniseries or even like the middle, like have that be something that genuinely sort of torments him for a good part of the series rather than having it drop in the final issue pages before the end. Like it's not revealed until that final issue, I think, that she's
well,
that
no, but
she's
it's revealed that his mom is still
it's
alive and not who he thought
right,
she was in the
and
In
it's
the
first
revealed.
first
issue.
issue,
There's the
And he
internal reveal
pretends that
earlier,
it
but
doesn't matter.
yeah, but it's also
That's
but
the
they don't have
thing.
any
So
conflict
much
over
of
it. They don't.
this, well, but I'm going to push back on that because I mean, one of the reasons that I love comics, one of the reasons that I think that this works is you have to read in to the gutters. You have to look between, you know, he's putting up a front, but we're also seeing flashbacks to a different person. We're seeing actions that don't quite match his words.
Yeah.
You know, he doesn't, I mean, he talks about he could kill his mom right there, but he doesn't.
right?
He talks a huge game with, and I keep forgetting her name. I'm terrible with names. What's
Bad
the
Betty, Juniper.
Juniper? He talks about all sorts of horrible stuff with Juniper. He doesn't follow through on any of it. Um, and like this is not a guy who's known for not following through. If anything, like he takes everything to the nth degree. You
Yeah.
know, oh, you looked at me funny. Let me burn you to death. Um, I feel like throughout this entire thing, he's soul searching, but in a way that isn't supposed to be easy to see because he would never in a million years admit that that's what he's doing.
I guess I just it's
And for me, I think that the is it Thomasina thing
the
actually
mayor.
what? Oh, not the mayor.
Juniper.
No. Who's the one that's
Bad Betty.
the yeah, Betty thing also plays into this because all she sees is his monster and she just wants to take him out.
Right.
But the shadow
And she's not
cabinet
wrong in a lot of ways.
I'm not saying that she is, but the shadow
Yeah.
cabinet that is run by the guy who can like see possibilities, blah blah blah, won't let her. They
Mhm.
see something, they see a purpose that needs to be filled. Now, I don't know if that has anything to do with the struggle that we see inside a Holocaust, but you can't completely discount it. Now, this is a thing that I could totally see, you know, if various parts of it don't play into the rest of the Milestone universe, looking back on it and saying, oh, well, that was a whole lot of build up to nothing. I don't want to say that it's all in these 5 issues. But these 5 issues are the most interesting portrayal of Holocaust I've seen yet. Um,
Maybe, but it still doesn't give me like I don't feel like there's enough actual I don't know. I feel like there's very little actual development over the course of the book is the thing. Like
and I
I
don't think
don't
they're supposed to be.
well,
I
Yeah.
like because again, like if you ask him if he's changing or even considering changing or going through any of this stuff, he's like 6 months before the intervention. Never mind, into the process of changing. Like this is the like if you confront him with it, he'll deny it and dig in hard, which is why it's kind of interesting that like and Juniper I think is playing it perfectly. She's not confronting him with it.
Well, and I did think that that was interesting with her because
She could totally be pushing him away or bringing him in, but she's not willing to bring this version of him in,
I
and
thought
she's
that
not willing to go away.
I thought there was some interesting character work with her. I mean, just to slightly because I feel like we're kind of going in circles. We feel
yeah.
differently about the book, and that's
We
okay.
do. Yeah,
That's
it's
okay. But I guess one thing I did think Juniper ended up being interesting because initially, obviously, is pretty horrifying because like his it's not an exaggeration to say that while a rape does not happen, it's a concern that it's
Mhm.
very possible and
it's there's
even
a lot of yeah, there's a lot of like situations where
well,
it not whether or not it's happened, there's that threat of the
oh, I
of
don't
yeah.
actually think that it has happened
Yeah.
because even when he references having had her in the past, that was very consensual and almost and maybe even tender to with what we kind of spoke about before. But the idea of him now and who he's become, and the idea of that like she's a possession to him and somebody he could do whatever he wants with, like
Yeah.
that's like truly horrifying. And and so it's interesting, like her internal, because we don't get too many of her thoughts in the first couple issues, but we do see the results. We see her,
Yeah, she tries to commit suicide.
yeah,
She thinks very clearly about killing him but doesn't.
yeah, and that's where the moment after she decides not to, that's really interesting because then we kind of get insights into her and ways that in which that she relates to him. Um, you know and so not like in some ways that's a very tricky needle to thread, right, in the
Right.
sense that like Holocaust just he really ain't shit, and so you kind of don't want to see necessarily a storyline where the girl's like, oh, but he's
Yeah, you don't want to see her fall in love with him.
yeah, yeah, but
There's yeah.
that's really not what it
Well,
is. They're two
No.
very lonely people. And then even later, and I mean, Tad, you had kind of spoken about this about maybe not in these exact words, but you kind of spoken about the fact that there are there are shifts or there's like things that you just ordinarily would have expected him to do, and then he zigs instead of zags, like even
let me ask a quick question too. I mean,
yeah.
we just said we didn't want to see her fall in love with him, but my
Mhm.
question is she already in love with Leonard
No,
Smalls?
I don't think she is
No.
at all.
No.
I think with what they've established with her, it's not that she's in love with him. I think it's that she realizes they're both broken. They're broken in a similar way. I think that between the horrors that are alluded to from
But
her
but
family
but
life.
again, I'm emphasizing with who he was before Powers.
Oh,
No, I don't
before
feel like we didn't know.
Is
Well, we don't really
is
know what he
she
is
in
like.
love with Leonard Smalls?
we don't
I
really even know
think
what he was like before he was
I
Holocausted.
think
We
that
don't entirely. We really only know from these flashbacks.
I
Yeah.
think that that was a chapter in her life, and they definitely allude to the idea that her father had, abused her. They allude to just all the ways in which, her family had failed her. She even failed on multiple levels, and she feels like a kind of like broken person and feels like as bad as he is, which I would say pound for pound probably not as bad, but she
Yeah,
could
no.
relate. But she could
Yeah.
relate, right? And she has regrets and things like that. And I think that's what it's about. That's why it's like the moment when they do become intimate, it's not a uh it's it's unsatisfying for everybody, probably them included. And but for us as readers, and it's not intended to be. I think it's intended to be these two people who are just like don't like themselves. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's almost like a business transaction. And even with the idea of him telling her multiple times, like I thought I told you to get out of here. I don't think she's not staying because she's in love. She's staying because I she legitimately is like, well, what would I even do? What would I go to?
There's
Because
that bit with
yeah,
the butler character where he says something like, try to get on his good side. He does have one.
yeah.
Which yeah,
Oh,
it's
that's
a
interesting.
sorry. Well, it's a I mean it's a strategic thing. It's a
Mhm.
yeah. So no,
Yeah.
I yeah, I mean I get everything this book is trying for. I feel like it didn't get there is sort of how I feel about it. Like I get what it's trying to be and I get the kind of story it's trying to do, but it doesn't do it for me. Like it doesn't give me enough to go on for any of these characters to be like, yeah, this is a real struggle for Holocaust. Like it doesn't seem like it is. He has nightmares, but also when he's actually going out and murdering people, he seems to do it pretty effectively. It's not like it doesn't
But
seem
they're
like
also
it's
terrible people. He's not murdering like,
yeah, but even just in the sense of like he's tired or he's having difficult. I don't know. It just it doesn't. I don't feel the weight that this story is reaching for. I don't
well, wait,
feel.
I, would- I hear you, and I'm not even trying to like sell you on this, but I do have to
Yeah,
say,
no, I
with
don't
what
want
you
to
just said, you actually do see a certain toll of his constant,
use of his
use
powers. Yeah, he
of his
kind of flames
powers.
out a little bit.
Yeah, and it's like it's at a point, and it did like literally put him in mortal danger. Essentially, Juniper chose to let him live in that situation, but
Yeah.
his exhaustive use of his powers, um, put him in that vulnerable state. And I think that I do see. All right, this is where I have to say, based on what we've seen of the character up to this point, I do think this series is doing interesting things to not I don't know if you would say growth, but I would say we have insights on him that we just have never had. And like some of those insights are just even the idea that like of on a mechanical level of how his powers function, because we always have seen him as somebody who can just burn everything. He is this unstoppable danger, and on top of that, his almost complete lack of a code just takes the danger that he presents in a physical and nature sense, and it just makes it infinitely more. So it's almost like the idea of like Superman being overpowered. It's like at a certain point, you do have to find a way to balance out your overpowered character. So I do think that even introducing like physical limits to his use of his power was like really interesting. The nightmares, while yes, in and of themselves, it's not you know, everything. We've literally never seen past the wall of his machismo in all of the stories that we've seen him in. We've seen him exerting his will and influence and power over people, but we haven't really seen what lays behind that. So
Yeah.
this series really does introduce vulnerability. And yes, that vulnerability doesn't necessarily play out um in all of the ways that we maybe think of vulnerability. But
Yeah,
it's
that's
it's present in a way that we've never seen for this character. And to me, I do think that you do for myself, I can only speak for myself. I feel like I came away not liking him, you know what I mean, but
right.
also um being like, okay, he is like a more complicated character. And to be honest, there's real guys like this. They can't necessarily like make fire with their hands or their mind. You know what I mean? But there are real people who have been failed by the system, by community, disinvestment, by, by a whole host of, by redlining, by,
Yeah.
urban renewal, take your pick. And they are people who had the warmth kind of like squeezed out of them, like, over time. So I think in reading, I was reading it from that lens, like, that uh this is not that far, he's not that far-fetched from a character other than the powers, like, you know what I mean, that he has.
Sure.
So
I
I guess
just
these are the things that like I took away from it. And I think
that's yeah.
I hear what you're saying in the sense of if you're coming to the story and you're looking for these things, then yeah, maybe it didn't hit that note for you. But to me, I just saw the story as trying to do something different than the things that you didn't see in it.
I guess. I don't know. It it I kind of was going through it in my head and being like, okay, what actually sort of changes in Holocaust to the status quo? What is different at the end of this comic that is, in the Milestone universe or in characters or whatever from what it was beforehand? And like very little sort of consequence feel like it's changed by the end in a
Hmm.
way that feels yeah, I mean, and again, I mean, I change it in sort of a very broad sense. Like it could be a character being a very different type of character at the end, or maybe the status quo, the entire status quo of the Marvel of the Milestone universe is about to change. But like, it just he kind of just ends up getting everything he wanted and doesn't have to change his modus operandi all that much.
But
You
it's
know,
not even just the last page to that point, right? It's like, yes, the last page is where he confronts his mom and
yeah,
they speak about his name. But even the pages leading up to that, it's supposed to be the celebration, right? Where they're like, you did it, you finally made it, and he's miserable. Like, on page 124, he's sitting on his like, proverbial throne, and Tarmac is like going through the new cool fire power based names he could possibly choose
yeah,
from. Obviously Bad Betty is like this MF over here. Juniper is not happy, but like this is supposed to be a celebration, and all he could think about, he literally thinks like, why isn't it enough for me? Um, and he's thinking about what you said, like how he has everything,
yeah,
but it's like those are things, you know what I mean? And that
yeah.
is
He's got the money, he's got the power, he's got the women.
yeah, and that's the allure of the streets and power in that sense. And it's but those that allure is like really usually is very tempting to people that have just gone without, and on multiple levels, not even just financially,
Yeah,
like going without when it comes to like a sense of security. I mean, we talked about it. I talked about it a lot when we talked about Blood Syndicate, the fact that, gangs essentially, they grew out of a sense of the people wanting safety and family, even if they have to create that structure in a way that's, not necessarily safe. And then on top of that, like, you have historically some situations where things that were termed as gangs weren't even based around crime and violence specifically, and that may have came
yeah,
in, but in many cases they also had a sense of like community regulation, whatever you want to say. So I'm just
yeah. They
like,
provide an organization or a family or a structure or something that
yeah.
yeah,
So I would say like I look at these last two pages um as a piece. It's not just the last page. where they're talking about the name, it's kind of just the fact that yeah, getting what he want. And if you and also if you look at the character from the moment, because that tower guy, who's kind of like a super cop, a tormented like super cop who seems to
Yeah.
like have almost legendary status in the city and their history. When Holocaust, because he initially seems like he's got Holocaust in the ropes, but then like Holocaust really just deals with him and kills him,
Yeah.
right? And to me, that is a turning point in this because you're just like, all right, there's literally nothing stopping him. He's on a path and he is unstoppable. So it's kind of inevitable that he's going to get his spot. He's going to achieve his goal of getting a spot on the commission. Um, or is that what they're called? Whatever.
The coalition.
Coalition. Yeah, yeah, yeah. On the coalition. And it's inevitable because it's like that Tower character, he is the best bet of stopping him,
Yeah.
and he just deals with him. And so like that he's going to achieve his goals. So it's all leading up to this point of him getting the goals, achieving his goal and realizing that he's still empty inside because the things you can never really fill your cup with like power, money, sex, all these things without being whole yourself. And like that
Yeah.
is what he's lost. And maybe it's something he never had, but I think that is the loss in there. That's how I read it.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's fair. I feel, yeah, this is just, it didn't hit me the same way, maybe, or I didn't feel like it did enough of what it was hoping or trying to do, I guess, because it never clicked for me. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Cool.
For whatever reason, it just did not, it didn't hit me in a way that felt, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we never actually went through the plot points of it, but I think we covered it all pretty well. The tower stuff I thought it was sort of an interesting digression, and you know, having looked ahead, I know Tower comes back sort of, and I'm curious what happens with that. So that's yeah, yeah. I don't know. It never quite clicked for me.
Yeah. I'm gonna try to do like a super condensed recap.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't even know if we need to, but
Yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
Okay. All right. All right. Well,
No,
I
no,
mean,
no. I just
the broad strokes, without like really like going through beat by beat, is essentially, we enter the story with Holocaust, who has already been established as somebody who, basically in the first issue of Blood Syndicate was
yeah,
like too too much of a wild card for them. Like, you know what I mean? And he just was established as like pretty much the most dangerous person in Dakota. Um and so like we enter the story as we mentioned, Bad Betty, who is a Shadow Cabinet member who we've met previously, is basically doing undercover work. And I do
yeah,
actually think that the stress of there's a little tension that's built with the idea of her being with this like super dangerous dude and just being like, yo, he's got to go.
yeah.
And I was wondering throughout, like, is he gonna bust her and she's just gonna, die?
Die
I,
immediately.
it didn't seem like that was implausible. You know what I mean? But she
Oh
does.
yeah.
Spoiler: she does make it to the end. Um,
Well, sort of, because the thing that I feel like it should have been a bigger deal than it was, is
mm,
that it turns out, I mean, this whole time she's been reporting to Dharma, and then eventually Dharma's like, look, you're getting obsessed with the idea of killing him. I can't have that. And he just like turns her off, and it turns out she's basically been a robot the whole time, or at the very least that her like cybernetic implants make her mechanical enough that he just like says a phrase to her and shuts her off
right, right.
and
That was
like
interesting.
that was like it was wild to me that that was a thing and it kind of didn't really get not mentioned. I mean it almost happened out of no not I don't want to say nowhere, but like
Right. There wasn't a lot of focus on it.
there wasn't a lot of focus on it, and it was sort of it seemed like it should be much more consequential than it was, I guess. So yeah, I don't quite know how I feel about that, but
Yeah.
yeah, I feel it. Well, and also I don't. I do not remember when we first saw Bad Betty. I forget how long she's been like at Holocaust side, because like we said, there was that one issue of Shadow Cabinet that focused on her sort of, and it was I do not remember like what she's been aside from Dharma's deep cover agent with Holocaust. So I don't know.
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah, just with the recapping though.
Yeah, like,
So basically they initially their Holocaust is just making his way through the coalition. What we find out is a just like basically they're running all of the crime in,
yeah.
Parris Island and Dakota City, and they're like the people behind the people that just run
I
it.
Yeah, I do love that. Like literally, they are the Dakota Coalition for Better Business and Urban Renewal, and like
Right.
they have a letterhead and everything, but it's also just, oh no, we're actually just like all the crime bosses. Um,
Which I love that
oh,
commentary
that's so good.
because
Yeah,
because I remember one of my this is a quick side tangent, but I remember one of my students' mom who I had a very good rapport with, but they were definitely like they were like wealthier and privileged. And I just remember her one time talking about coming back from a trip to a particular part of Brooklyn. She was like, "Oh, it was so nice, it was so beautiful and gentrified." And I was like, "Oh wow, that's the first time I've heard the G word, like at least in my
positively.
circles,
Yeah,
mentioned as like, oh, it's a great thing." You know what I mean? Like because, and it just shows like the twisted funhouse mirror of America at
yeah,
American politics and history, and its connection with its inextricable connection with business interests and the way that those align with destruction, crime, and racism, in the sense that, like urban renewal to me is just
just
is like death, is parallel to death.
it's
It's
urban destruction. Yeah,
yeah. I mean, we honestly don't have time for me in this episode for me to break down all my thoughts on that, but it's evil.
it
But
is.
like,
Yeah,
this group, it's kind of like they're just openly like, yeah, they got like a
we're
fun
the
minister.
Coalition for Better Business Bureau,
Yeah,
whatever.
but
Yeah.
they're obviously just criminals. They're
Yeah.
fancy criminals, you know what I mean? And like, so I just love that commentary
Oh yeah.
of that.
Yeah, I forget if we've ever talked about it, but the fact that like the big organization that runs everything in the Milestone universe is literally just the system is
Hmm.
so good. And it's
Yeah,
an acronym that probably doesn't stand for anything. And it's like that's such a like that's so simple and so perfect and so pure. I love it. It's yeah, no, they couldn't have done anything better. Anyway, sorry, I interrupted you.
yeah. So sorry. So I'm
No,
just
no.
gonna speed through it. So
Yeah.
basically the big inciting igniting incident is that Holocaust and Bad Betty and Tarmac, the this kind of like Suicide Squad-esque team, they come in and they quickly dispatch of Elijah, who's a member of the coalition and powerful, and in doing this they threaten to his family and everything, and you quickly find out his daughter is Juniper, who we later in the series find out that like Holocaust at a certain point in his tragic backstory had like what seemed to be like a genuine, maybe tender relationship, but it also was something that just wasn't meant to be. Is for multiple reasons, you know what I mean? And but anyway, he ends up killing Elijah, and then he says ominously, like, take Juniper, like and he says like pretty much outright that she's his possession, which is super messed up, obviously. Um, then we get some insight into the coalition. We see them going back and forth. Holocaust makes demands to them to let him on the coalition. Um, Whitaker is out of the coalition members throughout. We kind of see him the most because he's the one who's trying to exert his influence on the mayor, Thomasina Jefferson, basically get her to like do whatever she has to do to kill the Holocaust. Oh, also, as we mentioned it before, but like Elijah, before he dies, I think because he's trying to save his life, he insinuates that like he could tell Holocaust who his real mom is. Like,
Yeah.
and as we're reading it, even before Thomasina reveals it, it's kind of clear that the storylines are converging to the point where that is who his mom is. Um, and so like basically Holocaust, he keeps going up the ladder of going after coalition members until they give him a spot. There is We did mention before that, Juniper is not obviously super hyped about being a possession of Holocaust. So, she takes the drastic and tragic, messed up step of like, trying to cut her wrists. And then in only Holocaust could make saving her life cruel, but he does. He basically is like, you're not getting off that easy, and that she'll die when he says. So, like, even saving her, he manages to be cruel about it.
Yeah.
Um, then we see him having dreams. And these dreams like do give us insights into his past, his history of abuse with his family, and the tragic death of the woman who he understood to be his mom, even though that's not his birth mom. He keeps killing up the ladder as he's going after them. This whole time, Bad Betty is, she is not subtle in her interior thoughts about the fact that how disgusted she is about him, how much she really doesn't want. She's tired of this undercover mission, and she's also increasingly questioning Dharma's um decision making, his honesty, which we've already seen that, in
Yeah.
Shadow Cabinet. And but she that's her struggle she's carrying. So Whitaker decides to pull out the big guns and tells Thomasina, like, yo, you got to get Tower up in here. I don't think, to me, this was the first time I'd seen Tower. I don't really remember him.
Yeah,
Um,
this is I looked it up. This is the first time he appears. He comes back and has a bigger role.
okay.
Well, it's later on, but yeah, this is the first time he appears or is mentioned as far as I can tell.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so yeah, so there's that. Oh, and then also, and it's interesting, the first two issues, I think, or maybe issues 2 and 3, they both end with uh Juniper, like, taking drastic measures. And
Yeah.
actually, the more I look back at this, I think whichever one of you guys said that mentioned the butler later on, saying like he has a good side. Yeah, maybe she really was being strategic. I do think she genuinely has an internal struggle because sorry, what I was saying is that so this next issue ends with him having like really exhausted himself from just burning everything in sight, and he's overdone it with his powers, and he basically passes out in front of Juniper, and he's smashed a mirror before he did it. So she grabs a shard of glass and is really contemplating just killing him to solve her problem with him, but then she doesn't, and this is where we get some insight into her thoughts. And that's where you're kind of seeing that she does weirdly relate to him. How much she hated her father in her life. Because, you get the sense that honestly, you mentioned Penguin. It's not unlike in a lot of ways, what's her name in Penguin?
Oh, the hang the
Sophia, right?
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, because she also had been raised by this family, and not really had a choice about having a full life and being a whole person. And so that's kind of is we kind of get a little insight to the fact that that's Juniper's situation as well. So she ends up like deciding to stay. So then we meet Tower. Tower is again this kind of tormented ex super cop guy, who seems unstoppable initially. And when he goes after Holocaust, like I said, he kind of seems to have him on the ropes. Like the fire is initially not really working on him, and he's really, he's giving the business a little bit. But then Holocaust basically has had enough, and he does manage to torch him to death. Um,
And as he dies, he does well, sorry, you were probably going to say it,
yeah,
but
yeah, yeah. Say again.
well, as he dies, he says, "I forgive you," as he
Yes, yes, yes,
yeah.
yes. And I think, again, not to always be pleading the case for this story, but I do think that that is some of the consistent work that they're building on, is the idea, because he also, in throughout the course of their back and forth banter, I mean, first of all, he is being kind of patron. He's kind of a, but he does say like, you think you're shit, blah blah blah, and like that ties into this refrain of his father having told him that he ain't shit and over, and some of these other kids that were bullying him, and so it's like literally, and life is like that too. Sometimes you're out there you just think you're talking trash to somebody, or maybe you don't even think you're talking trash, and you're just like jamming a finger into a wound you didn't even know that they had. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And
Yeah.
then that's when people are liable to explode. So anyway, he ends up killing Tower, and then he goes after Whitaker. And Whitaker obviously is really angry at this point because he's been essentially holding over the mayor, like that he knows where all her bodies are buried proverbially, and that like it could be very bad for her if he doesn't help her with this. So Holocaust ends up going and killing him, killing
Yeah.
Whitaker. And
Well, actually, I mean, sorry, not
oh
to.
no, you're right. No, you're right. He doesn't kill him. Yeah,
He doesn't kill him.
he's on a
Whitaker
mission.
kills. Well, he's about to kill him. Then Whitaker kills himself.
Right, right. No, that's a great point. And also, I should say before Whitaker dies, he he either phones or yeah, he does. He phones the Demon Fox, the head of Demon Fox, and
Oh yeah.
yeah, and she's just basically like, "Hey, man, that's tough breaks.
Just
We've
so you know, we're going with Holocaust.
yeah, yeah,
Sucks to be
and
you.
essentially, yeah. And so to she sends a letter to Holocaust, like basically
Yeah.
saying that like he's on the commission. Congrats, you got the job.
This is the thing where it has the letterhead, which I love.
Yeah,
Or not
yeah,
even letterhead exactly, but yeah.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So then basically, I mean, we're kind of getting to what it culminates in. From there, and throughout, you kind of get insights into the mayor, which I don't know if I said this before, but I actually found that interesting because, like, prior to this, she's kind of just been a figure in the city who's kind
Yeah.
of like figured into some of these storylines, mostly an icon. And, but like, this is where, like, you kind of see her as a person and a complicated, maybe not totally likable person, but a person,
Yeah.
you know, who you find out there's a lot behind her and like what she's doing and
And she's had to make a lot of compromises and make a lot of hard choices. Like that's her story about how exactly because the way that she decides not to take care of the baby that would grow up to be Holocaust is heartbreaking and great and wonderful because like at first like she first of all tells someone, I think it's like her assistant or something, that like, yeah, Holocaust is my son, but he doesn't know it. um
yeah,
and then later on we find out that like she's having a conversation with Tower, and Tower has like perfect memory, so he says like, oh yeah, I remember you lost your baby in a fire, and she's like,
right,
yeah, that's what
right.
happened. And then finally, much after a while after that, or maybe I'm conflating the two, whatever. But eventually she reveals that actually what happened was there was a fire in the hospital, like in the maternity ward. She got out with her baby, but
Mm,
like well, she was originally gonna leave without the baby, but she like had to go back and get him. But then on her way out, she's like, I can't do this. She goes up to him and is like, hey, I couldn't save my baby, but this is yours, and just
right.
gives her the baby and walks. And I thought that was like, that's great. I mean, not, you know what I mean? Not
Yeah,
great, but like that's a really heart-wrenching way to do it. And I thought
yeah.
that was fascinating. So,
And
yeah.
yeah, no, and everything you said, and in addition, I found the fact that it was a fire, and not because like Holocaust had fire powers as the baby, but just because it was just a freak thing, but also a odd universal foreshadowing
Yeah.
of, you know what I mean, his
The
path.
Burning Man, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah.
there is something interesting to that too. Yeah. Yeah, like her I kind of wish that that was the relationship that had been put at the forefront. Like make her and Holocaust meet up more frequently from the start somehow.
Mm.
Like cuz their relationship ends up being some of the most interesting stuff cuz he says very clearly, I don't want to hear about my mom. Like at the beginning, Elijah says like, "Hey, I know who your mother is," and he's like, "Yeah, I don't care," and he shoots him in the face, and like and he's very clearly like putting on a show about it,
Yeah, he
but
absolutely is because he does
right,
pause, and it's very much in line with his bravado because he
yeah,
does care, but he's willing himself to
to
not.
not care. Yeah. So I wish that there had been more conversations between Thomasina and Holocaust, because like their conflict is the most interesting, I think, part of that. And they didn't even interact until like the fifth issue, and even then they have like two conversations, and that's about it. And it just I yeah, I know I'm just kind of saying the same thing, but yeah, it just didn't hit me as much as I wanted, that like their whole relationship. I'm sorry, you didn't even finish
Oh yeah, I mean
the
we're
recap.
almost at the
We're
end.
at the end basically. Yeah, like
Yeah,
he ends up
like
getting the invitation and taking it. He he doesn't, bother going in and burning down the place. He just like walks up. Well, you tell it, man. You were telling it. I'm sorry. I started
yeah,
on you.
no, I mean it's pretty much that. Yeah, like there's this interesting, and this is where like I think power dynamics are so interesting. Like The Wire famously does this really well,
Mm,
where you enter the story in season one, like, seeing like the drug trade in Baltimore, seen through this mostly through this one family. Um, and but then each subsequent season, it's almost like they're pulling out the lens on the power structure. Because like season two, they get into like the crime of the ports and like what is allowed in and imported into the city. So then you're just kind of like, all right, well the kids on the corner that are, selling drugs are like pawns, like comparatively, right? And even like the people with who are their bosses are compared to like maybe people who have the power to bring the drugs in. And then you pull out even further in subsequent seasons and you see the political maneuverings of the city and then the
yeah.
education. So like I think that I bring all that up because it's interesting because as much as like Holocaust is just a force of nature and so feared and this unstoppable danger, it's like when he's face to face with the commission or the coalition, you see him being almost uncharacteristically measured, and that's because even he understands there is a hierarchy. And then uh Thomasina like really underlines that later when she shows
Yeah.
up at the door, which we'll get to. But I do find that interesting because he does say to the coalition when they're it's discussing terms with him and discussing the sacrifices that he needs to make to join, he basically is like, what if I just burned you all? And like, I could do that. Like, and they basically tell him like, sure, you could absolutely do that. But they basically spell out to him how he would be setting himself back, um, and be dealing with endless struggle. And then all of his toil to get to this point would be wasted. Um, and so he doesn't. He doesn't. A matter of fact, I would say the last violence he really commits is when he's on his way to kill um Whitaker. And then it's like after that, like he doesn't really, right? Like he threatens a bunch
Yeah.
of people and has very tense conversation and lights his hands up, but he really doesn't. So you kind of see, I guess the reason why I brought up that Wire parallel is just that you see that he's feared and he's dangerous and big on one level, but they represent a power that like transcends his power. So there's always basically somebody above in these messed up hierarchies. And then
Yeah.
that issue ends with the mayor showing up at his door, and then she goes on to basically lay down the law with him about how things are. And it's very interesting because she is speaking to him like a mother that's had it with a badass kid. Like,
Yeah.
and again, he's threatening her throughout. He's lighting up his hands, he's doing all of that, but really, she never breaks like once.
Yeah, she has no fear of him
Yeah,
because she
she's got
knows what
like
the
no,
position
yeah.
is.
And I think in a lot of ways she probably feels she has nothing to lose. I think she's
Yeah.
also, you can only imagine with we talked about how like she revealed how giving him up. You can only imagine how many feelings and thoughts are colliding in her. She also definitely seems to be a person that where maybe her pursuit of like political power, um, we do know she's sacrificed. She's sacrificed a lot.
Yeah.
So, um, now being confronted with, I don't know, the human realities of family and loss and things like that. These are things that she's stuffed down for years, but then the child that she gave up has essentially just become this perpetual thorn in her side that she can't get away from. So I think all of that is spilling out. And that's where her almost reckless, like, you know, going off on him comes from. And
Yeah.
so I want to say this is not to rehash our debate, but I do want to say like the fact that like pretty much after again that point when he gets the letter, he's not doing like all the violent like Holocaust stuff that we're accustomed to. And I think that as he's as humbled as he is gonna get, you know what I mean? And
I think he's also thinking more.
he's thinking more definitely, yeah.
But before that, he was very, very reactive.
Right. Right.
Um, and I think that he's less reactive and more. I don't think we can go quite thoughtful yet, but
he has
measured.
yeah, he realizes there are a few other things to work towards.
Yeah, and I mean, to be clear, I don't think Holocaust is like, and you didn't say this, so I'm not saying you said this, but I don't think he is, I don't think he's unintelligent. I think that he is a person who's haunted by by all of the things that have, made him this way, and he's acting off of that. But I think there's a good point that he is, I think, being measured and thoughtful in a way. And then we get the scene where like after all of the intimations that like he could have Juniper anytime he wants, she comes to the room, and I think you guys have pointed out that the butler said, I'm not sure if it's before this or after, that like he can be reasonable if you're.
Well, that was early on, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so it's probably, I think it's her coming to him is a combination of probably that conversation and maneuvering, but I think she genuinely is like, I don't have anything else, and almost like I almost deserve to be. I think she feels bad about herself, and she feels she deserves to be with somebody bad in a sense. And he rejects her in a messed up way because she's got scars on her back, which is super messed up at multiple levels. And then um she says that that there's no hope for them and that they should just die. And that is the thing that makes him grab her and I guess like kind of be intimate with her and maybe like a bit tender, and it's that shared like basically like we ain't shit type thing is how I read it, you know. Um and then he has a dream that flashes back to when they were younger and they were together, and it didn't end well. And then yeah, and then I mean from there it's like we see him go to the coalition. They ask him, you find out that they all had to give up something when entering the coalition. Um, and they can't tell him what he has to give up, but they can give him suggestions. So the two suggestions are giving them Juniper because basically she's really good with numbers and she'd be an asset to them. Um, and again,
Or give up his name. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Another option was give up his name, and he did choose his name. It is interesting because I am thinking about what you were saying about, I don't know, the subtlety of his growth and compassion, even if you want to go there, because he does say like, well, giving up Juniper really is not a big deal because she's not shit to him, but. Looking back at it, I do think that he actually was doing that to protect her.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's bluster.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Like he's trying to look tough, but I do think he
No,
actually,
yeah,
yeah, looking
that's
out
my
for.
point is that like he isn't as set as he makes out to be on the fact that she doesn't mean anything to him.
Mhm.
Right, right. Yeah. So I mean, it's like, and then again, he's like, I don't know, multiple times
I mean, because the other thing is, particularly because like they're pointing out how she could be good for the whole group.
mm,
I feel like if he really meant what he said in terms of she's meaningless to me, that's
mm,
not really a sacrifice. He
right.
he he he'd do both.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a good point.
Hmm.
You
Yeah.
know, I think he made that statement as a deflection, um, and then gave up his name, even though it was a big deal.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
because like I mean, my picture of Holocaust so far, and it's one of those places where I wish that there were 100 issues of Holocaust because I think with good reason the character development has been slow.
Hmm.
Um, and we didn't really get any of the development about where he came from before this.
Yeah.
So like we've only known him as the the not so good guy.
Yeah, as just
Um,
a force of nature that's just like
right.
constant source of danger
So
for.
what we're now getting is that um long before he was um what's the word I'm looking for? Long before he was this force of nature, he was broken and didn't know his place, didn't know his um uh,
Worth.
value, worth,
Mm,
thought poorly of himself, all of the things. And now suddenly he has all of this power.
yeah.
Um, and when you do that, um, like understandably, he goes way overboard. And
Yeah.
now we're starting to see some kind of correction.
Yeah, it remains to be seen. You're right, but
Right. Who knows whether it's a real correction, but like again, what we're now seeing is uh, maybe there's there's more here.
yeah, yeah. And I do
Yeah.
think it's cool that, Ivan Velez was the one to tell this story, along with I wasn't super familiar with Tommy Lee Edwards before this.
I
Um
think this is early art of his.
I was going to say, didn't he do art for something else for Milestone that we've read though? Or am I?
Yeah.
maybe,
Can't remember.
but he might not have been like a regular. You're right. He
Oh
probably showed
yeah.
up for an issue, but I don't know. It's really cool. Like to me, his art almost seems like somewhere between John Paul Leon and Dennis Cowan, who also this past weekend got a inducted into the Eisner Hall of Fame, which
Yes, he
was
Nice.
did.
yeah. But anyway, yeah, it's cool, but I do like Ivan Velez being able to tell the story because I feel like he introduced us to this character again as this kind of specter almost, but he's the one who gets to kind of give us a little bit more detail about it. But anyway, that's the recap.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, it's getting late also, but like
yeah,
I
yeah,
think
yeah.
we've covered it pretty thoroughly. It is I still don't feel like I've been turned around on it, but I do feel like I see what it's trying to do, and I am still wishing it was better, more effective. I don't know, that it hit something different. I don't know, but yeah, I get it, but it still doesn't quite hit for me, but I'm glad we talked about it for sure. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know. So next week, like according to the compendium, we have exactly one issue of Shadow Cabinet, I think, and
No,
then
I think we're moving into the summer. So I think we
yeah.
can't go by. So the way I'm looking at it is
Oh, I see. Yeah.
next month we should do the next six issues in the thing. So Shadow Cabinet 14, Blood Syndicate 28, Hardware 29, Long Hot Summer number 1, Icon 28, and Long Hot Summer number 2. And then the month after that should be Static 26, Hardware 30, Hardware 31, Blood Syndicate 29, Blood Syndicate 30, Static 27. And
Okay.
then there's a zombie 5 issue thing. And then it'll be back into the summer.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah, that makes sense. Oh yeah, because Long Hot Summer. For some reason, I thought Long Hot Summer was only like 2 issues. Okay. Dang.
Well, it was a 3 issue miniseries, but
Issue.
it also
Yeah.
crossed over with everything.
Right.
And
It
I'm
was the big mega
assuming they
crossover. Yeah.
put the stuff in here in a particular order
Yes. That.
because
Yeah.
it's not actually in the order that I'm seeing on the web even.
Yeah,
Uh,
I do not remember exactly how it all comes together, but I know that they do a lot of it's one of those things where you get multiple perspectives in the same event, so I'm very curious on
right.
how it reads like this. So,
Um,
okay.
so yeah, I mean, it looks like it'll be after the zombie, it'll be there's one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine, 10, or no, nine. So there's nine more before we get to our next block of zombies. So it might be that we do 6, 6 zombie and then either push for 9 or split it up over 2 months and do 5 and 4.
Oof. Yeah.
Um,
Well, we got 3 months to think about it.
right, right.
Yeah.
But
No,
yeah.
because I'm always hesitant to go more than 6.
Yeah.
Uh,
Whew. Excuse me. I'll be yawning.
but I feel like we should go 6 and 6 here.
That sounds good. Yeah.
So
I'm good on that.
Okay.
yeah.
All right, well, cool. Yeah, this was again not I was not totally into it, but I'm glad we had the discussion about it. Absolutely, and yeah, I'm looking forward to finally getting into the long hot summer stuff because I feel like that was a really it was their biggest attempt at a big mega crossover, and it has some interesting points to discuss. So yeah, looking forward to it.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Cool. Well, in the midst of our long hot summer, let's all stay cool until next time.
yeah, let's do our best.
Whee! Yeah, it's gonna be fun.
All righty. Everybody have a fantastic month. For the Brothers Anderson No Relation, this has been the Milestone Book Club on 22 panels, and we will see you after the next page.